about creating characters, but let's talk about IDing the hero.
The hero and the heroine need to be ID'd as soon as possible. Publishers these days, they don't want you to wait for like 5 or 6 chapters to have them meet, you know, to be introduced and then meet. They want it done in like the first chapter. So all of my heroes and heroines, they all meet in the first chapter.
The other thing you don't want to do is have a lot of male characters right at the beginning. It's like duck imprinting, where they follow the first duck, the object they see, thinking it's their mother. Well, readers will do that with heroes. If you have a character that's not your hero and he's there with the heroine, they're going to imprint in on him and think that's the hero, and then all of a sudden it throws him for a loop when he turns out not to be the hero. So be careful about, you know, letting them know right off who the hero is. If I have a man in my book early on that's not the hero, I try to find a way to let the reader know that this is definitely not my hero. But just be careful on that.
Anything else on IDing characters?
Just don't have too many characters at the beginning. That's really been a challenge for me in my World War II book, because there's 86 nurses. And a lot of them, they all have the name Helen, or they all have the same name, and so that's been really difficult. But in most fiction books, just be careful. Don't name your characters with the same names, and
Or with the same letter.
with the same letter even, sometimes. And sometimes you can't help it, especially if you're doing a series and you forgot that this character that you're going to bring back in book 3 started with the same letter as the heroine. You know, sometimes it just happens, but try to avoid having characters with similar names.
And the sooner you introduce your hero and your heroine, that gives the reader more time to bond with them through the book, and they become more invested in the characters.
All right, we touched a little bit on point of view. Do you have any more hints or points on point of view that's best for romance?
Let's see. Well, I write in third person, that way I can jump around to different points of view. First person, I feel, limits you to one point of view, but I like being in everybody's head. So when you read my books, you'll see that the heroine has a point of view, secondary character has a point of view, the hero has a point of view, the villain has a point of view, and that's a big one for me, because I love telling people who the bad guy is right off the bat, and I want them to wonder, how are they going to stop this person? So for point of view, I use third person so I can use multiple points of view. I've tried writing with a single point of view, and that thing is the most horrible piece of dreck on the planet, and I just want to bury it under my bed and never look at it again.
If you're a newbie writer, third omniscient is probably the easiest to write with, to start out.
And don't ever do something just because it's a fad. It's something that's passing through, like first person present tense.
Oh, that's
Everybody jumped on the boat because, oh, I want to do that. That's so cool. And I'm sorry, I'm not a real big first person present tense person. I think 50 Shades of Grey is first person present tense. I haven't read it, but I think it is. But so
I read you the one passage at the one meeting, and oh my God, did we laugh and laugh. If you go through and read 50 Shades, you will realize if this garbage can get published, the door is open for everybody.
She had a catchy title. I'm sorry, I think it was all in the title.
Yeah.
But anyway, so be careful with. She just lost my.
I'm so sorry.
Those stand up lights starting to affect me. So what were we talking about? POV.
POV.
Okay.
Third person omniscient.
Oh, first person is more difficult. Now I have seen where a person, and I've done it in this book, basically, where you have someone's point of view, and you change scenes, and it's first person, but the next scene is in somebody else's point of view, and it's first person. It is possible. It's really difficult, and you have to be very careful to make it clear whose point of view you're in. We tried to write this book in third person, and it just didn't have that personal, deep intensity that we needed for it to have, so we figured out to do different scenes and do a different person's point of view in first person. First person's a little bit difficult. I also write, all my suspense and comedies are all third person, and I like that better because you can go to different people, the villains, they also, and one thing I forgot to mention is if you're doing a book and you have a villain and the villain's going to be very active with a POV, make sure that he has goals and reasons and motivation just like your hero and heroine.
That's true.
Yeah. Some things, we don't think of these things when we're writing these notes, and all of a sudden when we're talking about it, it pops up. So.
Excuse me. Let's talk a little bit about dialogue. Dialogue rules and how to use it to move the story forward and avoid information dumps.
Okay. Anybody? Or do you need to-
Go ahead and start.
Okay. Okay, well, one thing is using tags and beats. Tags are where you have said, replied. Those are tags. Said is an imaginary word. Some people feel like if they're using said too much, that they should change it to murmured and all these things. I used to have a friend that had murmured, mumbled. No, I think, and I don't know about Alan, but most people would prefer you go ahead and use said. With 86 nurses, I did have to use replied and murmured because said was said. But anyway, so said's sort of an imaginary word and it's good to use. If you have two characters and you can get to a point where they're talking and you don't have to use a tag, that's great. A beat is where they have an action. So like Elaine picked up the cup and took a sip. What kind of night did you have, Annette? You know, so a beat is where you have them doing an action. Pulled his shirt together, folded her arms. And you don't need said if you have a beat. So if you have them doing some kind of action in the paragraph, then you're not going to need, she picked up the cup and took a sip. What did you last night? Annette said, Elaine. So you're not going to need the said. The other thing is, a lot of times it's best to use more contractions in your dialogue for it to sound natural. You don't want your dialogue to be too stiff. You want it to sound natural, and sometimes you're going to use words that are not real words, like gotta, wanna,
And that helps differentiate who's speaking. You give your characters different connotations and how they speak, or it helps differentiate who's doing the speaking.
I was on the wrong side. I was on the back side. So the tags are said, murmured, that stuff, and I just said the beat is like Jay opened the window. Here's an important one. Never use the words laugh or giggle as a tag. You don't say, pass the ketchup, she giggled. I know that was stupid, but anyway. You don't use giggled as a replacement for said. You might say, pass the ketchup, she said, then giggled, or something. But you don't ever use giggled. I see when I judge a lot of contests or I start with a new writer, you see that a lot. Most editors, I don't know why, it goes back to see, spot, run. We prefer, I'll pick it up tomorrow, comma, Alice said. They prefer that to, I'll pick it up tomorrow, said Alice. They want the as said behind there. It goes back, it's just a preference, it's really not wrong. Be careful mixing a person's dialogue with another person's action because it can get very confusing. I have a lot of little paragraphs because I try to keep it very separated. If somebody's talking, then I'm going to put the next person's action. Occasionally, I'll have some things together, but you have to be very careful. And avoid buried dialogue. That's where you have a lot of narration and stuff, and maybe in the very middle they might say one or two little things. Go ahead and separate that. Spread those paragraphs out.
Start a new paragraph.
Yeah. Avoid one person speaking through a long paragraph. And the new stuff I've seen for new writers, a lot of times they'll have these long paragraphs where a person's talking about all this crucial stuff. Well, if there's people standing around listening, they're going to have reactions. They might not even be saying anything, but their eyebrow raised. This happened. It's going to be, they're not going to just sit there with their arms folded while this person talks about all these amazing things without something happening. And then what he's saying loses importance because it's so long and drawn out. Break it up into paragraphs, and in between those paragraphs, have people commenting, have people doing something. Oh, she put her hand over her heart. Oh, she gasped, over his news. But don't have these big one person. And if somebody, okay, now you might have to help me with this.
Okay.
I've seen where they have, one person will ask a question, and then what happens is all of a sudden they're doing some kind of narration, or they're talking about something else, and then they don't answer that question until about 2 or 3 pages over. And your reader's going like, huh? What? Well, the question was asked over here, but they went down the yellow brick road and put a lot of stuff in between the question and the answer. So if your character asks a question, then you answer before you go on describing something or something happening. So be careful. And I've got sheets on this, so we'll hand these out to you.
Well, on that point,
Go ahead.
I'm just going to completely blow that away.
Okay.
In my second book, I have a character with a humongous info dump. The hero's friend, she meets the heroine and her friend at a bar to tell them what happened in the past and why he doesn't trust people. So I've got this whole long narration in there, but as Elaine said, I broke it up. The waiter comes over and brings them a drink, and they wait for him to leave. The girl telling the story gets so upset, the heroine goes over and holds her for a minute and lets her cry. It's okay to do it, but you have to break it up. There's got to be reactions from the other people. Continue, Miss Elaine.
Okay. Now I'm back on the back side again. One of the things I do, and I did it in this, and it was really fun in the World War II because I had so many nurses to deal with, that you give them something that's specific to that character. In my book, Undercurrents, Caleb, his favorite word is hot damn. When you hear that hot damn, he's a good old country boy. In Bobby Joe and Sugar Shack, somebody in here got my copy of Sugar Shack, he says bullseye. Now, I needed a special personality for Bobby Joe, and I didn't know exactly where I was going to get it, so we're in Florida. My husband's nephew walks in, and he's this Florida, no offense to rednecks, but anyway, he wrestles alligators and does all this, and the first thing he did is come in verb and say, bullseye, and I said, that's it, bullseye. And I love it. And anybody watch Becker besides me? I love Becker. And I used to love Linda, the crazy receptionist, because she'd get in trouble and she'd go, here's the thing. That's her thing. Geneva in my Shadows of the Sun has stuff like, you don't say, is that so? Now, the family that had me write that doesn't realize that, but I listened to the way they spoke, and one of them kept saying that kind of stuff, and I used it. Lordy Mercy, good gravy. Winnie I have a little Wisconsin girl, and God, just like God made little green apples, or you betcha, you's coming. In Love Shack, Fit Wicked Man. So you want to look, and if you have a book, I have a jargons book of, called, the modern one. It's a dictionary, urban dictionary.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, urban dictionary, jargon dictionaries are really good to have. Characters with accents or regional dialects, you make them more believable and interesting, but now you don't want to overdo those dialects.
Because that irritates your editors.
Well, it also confuses the reader if you have 86 nurses and they've all got their own quirky thing they're saying. So sort of single it out to so many of your main things have maybe a little something they say or do.
And one tip is to show that at the beginning, and then you might not use that type of dialogue again, because the reader hopefully will understand that that's that character's quirk.
Yeah, and remember, men and women speak differently. If you ask a woman, how did your night go, she's going to rattle on about watching TV and dropping this, and the cat did this. And if you ask a man, how did your night go? Okay. They're short, they're to the point. Whereas a woman's going to rattle on and give you a more expressive answer. And make the dialogue fit the character. You wouldn't want to have a cowboy speaking like a Harvard graduate, but you wouldn't want a Harvard graduate speaking like a cowboy. So here was in my example, the woman would say, hectic, I ran late, then I lost my report, and I could really use a drink. man, could have been better, you know. So it's just, and then where we're gonna pass this sheet out, and it has a little bit of where quotation marks go. And that sounds silly because most of you probably know, but I've worked with new writers that over the years of not having to use it like in a classroom or something, you tend to forget sometimes. And I used to have to even stop and look it up myself sometimes, so I'll put that on here. So that's all I have to say on dialogue.
Okay. We've covered books. Let's talk a little more about plotting in a romance and love scenes, perhaps. What you have to have a good plot, a reason for your characters to be falling in love. You want to have things that will propel them forward in the dialogue. I'm not coming across very well.
Hey, she wasn't even at my house last night with all the chaos. You don't have any excuse.
So, how can we structure good plots for romance?
Lots of obstacles.
Yeah, that's true.
Keep the hero and heroine.
You gotta keep them apart.
In my first book, the heroine's thinking to herself, the road to true love is always filled with obstacles. Yeah, but why does mine have major construction signs? Because every time they try to get together, something pulls them apart. And for romance, you've got to have those obstacles. You've got to make the reader want them to get together and have their heart breaks when they can't. It took me 9 chapters for their first kiss. Just because it's the whole fairy tale, true love's first kiss, and the villain can sense when magic is being used, and he can sense soul bonding, so they have to not do it. And they finally just give up and do it, and it's like, okay, now we're screwed. So now they have to hide that. So that was, I overcame that obstacle and put in another obstacle. You must destroy them. You must destroy them to build them up.
Make them feel like they'll never, make the reader feel like they'll never get together. How will they ever work out? How is their relationship ever going to bring them?
That's where that internal conflict is so important, to have something very strong. It's because if you don't have that strong, it's going to work out. You're going to get them together too soon. And sometimes unless it's a hidden baby where you want them to get together right at the beginning, and then they don't see each other for umpteen years, that's a little different. But you want to try to prolong that relationship where they finally get together. And I was just reading somebody, I know I judged one in the Rita contest. These are published authors. And I mean, she resolved the relationship like mid-book. I was done with the book. I didn't care about reading anymore, really. I mean, some, but don't try to straighten it out, like Annette said. Throw things in their way so they can't come together. And we didn't talk about big dark moments.
Yes.
At the end of the book, your characters need to have that one final thing in their relationship that is worse than all the other little obstacles in the way.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing where you think they can't get past this.
In Love Shack, the hero and heroine have had all their obstacles, and then you think, okay, they just had a beach wedding, everything's fine, but their relationship's a little shaky. Anyway, they're right there, and all of a sudden his ex-wife pops up, very seductively, and they do some things. But anyway, no, they don't do that kind of thing. If they didn't do that, then he would do that with his ex-wife. But anyway, that's the big threat. You got to have that big moment where all heck happens, and you don't think, okay, they just got back together, they just got things solved, and now this has happened, and I don't think they can get over this. There's not going to be a fix to this. This is just too bad. And it might be, also if you write suspense, you also need that big dark moment. It can be with your threat. Their life is in danger, and there's just no way they're going to survive that bomb on the plane or whatever.
Or maybe that black moment is what makes them finally realize they're meant to be together. And they're thinking, we'll never be together.
Yeah. And if you write suspense or mystery, suspense, you've got to just, each one, I had some lady that says, you start off with something really big and devastating at the beginning. And I went, no, you don't. You start off and you build it and you build it, and everything is more threatening. I've just got to run into more ways of killing people and having them threatened. but you've got to build it, and then here's this big moment, the big final thing where they almost die, and then you resolve it. But so that's really important, when you're writing that book, is to keep it. Does anybody know the difference between a mystery and a suspense? That's one that used to always puzzle me. And some of my books have a mystery in them, but I still consider them suspense. But your mystery usually starts with a crime that's been committed, a robbery, a theft, a murder, and then they work to solve it. Whereas a suspense can have that to happen, but you are like, there's a threat of your dying, like this crime really hadn't happened, the big crime, it's coming. And it usually is towards your hero or heroine that somebody's out to get them. So that's sort of working that way. You might not know who the bad guy is, you might in a suspense. Whereas a mystery, you're working, the crime's already happened, and you're working backwards to solve it. Anyway, I didn't know that for a long time until I heard Carolyn Spearin talking about it.
The difference
between the mystery and the suspense. And
let's touch on love scenes. Who likes writing love scenes out there?
Nobody?
Me, I don't agree. We write at the same
Just
time.
one? Yeah. Okay, well, my husband used to write mine.
Wow. To be honest, in my mind, writing a love scene and writing a fight scene are very minimal. Why? Because they're both action scenes. A love scene is an action scene. And if you think about it that way, maybe it'll help you write it a little easier. A good fight scene engages the reader with word choice and pacing and effectiveness, and a love scene can work the same way. Where a love scene fits in your book is a good question. A lot of times you guidelines you need to read. I had a male reader tell me in Mista, he said, I thought I would have blue before they finally got together. So it just depends on where you feel it fits.
But one of the things I've heard readers complain about is that they don't want there to be, you need sexual tension. All through your book, you need that attraction. Now, sometimes I've overdone it, especially in some of my earlier books, She said if he felt one more tingle, I was ready to kill him or her. But anyway, so you've got to have that sexual attraction, really. And also, you might not want to start off hot and heavy with actual sex and stuff.
Unless you're writing erotica.
Right, erotica.
Erotica's different.
Eye contact. They first need to have that attraction through the eyes. Then the barely touch, or he touched the small of her back, and she feels that slight little, excitement or something. Well, even and then, sort of build it to where they're feeling more and more attraction for each other. I had a reader said she hates it when she picks up a book and all of a sudden they're having sex and they've never really had those attractions to each other. So work on that through your book. And so mine's like yours where they almost come together and then something happens and they don't. So you want to prolong that. Mine is usually, I try to put them, except in Blood Tide, it starts off with a sex scene and all my readers were like, seriously? On the 3rd page? But I said it was a hidden baby book. They had to, and then they're separated for years. But usually I do mine about 3/4 of the way.
That's pretty much
Yeah.
When you drop teasers in and things to pull them apart,
And even when I was a kid, I learned that's where most people put their sex scenes, because I'd take those books and I knew automatically to turn 3/4 of the way through.
Let's get to the good stuff.
Let's get to the good stuff.
Now let's talk about spice and heat in your scene. How do you know how spicy or hot explicit you need to be with your love scene?
I don't go explicit, I don't go graphic, and I don't go vulgar because I don't like reading it, I don't like writing it. And believe me, I've had 2 kids, I know why tab A goes into slot B, you don't need to be that descriptive. I like more of like Pat Potter. I like more of what they're feeling, the lighting, how, what the environment's like, and how they're touching is making them get more into each other. I personally prefer sweet romances these days because, like I said, I am 55 years old. Yeah, I've been there, done that. Don't want to read it anymore. But my books do have, I will write one really good love scene, and the rest of the book, it's all implied. I don't need to beat you over the head with this. You get it when I say they went to the bedroom and closed the door. You know what's going on. So I don't take mine any hotter than spicy.
No, I don't know.
She went way hotter than spicy.
I don't know where I fit. I'm spicy. But yeah, the Turbulence series, Turbulence, Grounded, and Stalled, the sexual content, they do have sex, but it's not nearly as spicy as, say, as Dark Side of the Mirror. Now, the comedy series is spicy. It's funny and it's spicy, and and
I have more fun writing the sexual tension because I think that's really more of where the romance comes in.
But now, I'm not explicit, and I had a girl once said, if you quit writing that porn, you could do such and such. And I said, I don't write porn. I wouldn't dare. I said, you need to go check out some books that are erotica and then compare it to what I write. I don't do the body fluids. And that's where your fine line comes. If you're describing every little thing in the act itself, that's where the fine line between erotica and stuff. I try to leave it to their, I don't leave it to their imagination, but like if, I sort of try to hee-haw around and I'm hoping you're getting the same picture in your brain as I am. Now, in some of my earlier books, I was a little more descriptive, and then my church people all started reading my books, and I can tell it's tapered down. The comedies, though, I had written them, they had been written for a while, and I was trying to hold until I had 5 comedies, and I had the 4th one. The 3rd one's almost done, the 4th one's partially written, and then I decided to go ahead and publish the first 3. So I didn't hold them, and I didn't change them. I read them, and I thought, well, this is a little spicier than I'm writing now, but it's funny, and it sort of fits the book, and so I didn't change it. I just went ahead and left it. But it's not like 50 kinds of shades of gray 50. And
that's not even good erotica.
No, and I tried really hard to tell my friend, you need to go read something, and please don't tell people I write erotica, because I don't. If I wanted to write erotica, I could, and I'd be making lots of money.
Meredith Baxter's making a killing.
Yeah, people who write erotica are making a killing, and they write little novellas that they can put out like this. But seriously, it is very popular. But I do go to church on Sundays, and I look at myself in the mirror. Even if I changed my name to Lula, Morgan or something, I don't know.
Yeah, they would see out.
God knows, and I'm sorry, I just can't bring myself to do a lot of erotica.
Our friend Heather Miles writes erotica. She writes good erotica.
Yeah.
There is a difference between good and bad erotica.
There is. They have stories.
Yeah. I read, it was, God, I was a teenager when I read this. It's a fantasy series written by Robert Vardaman. And I didn't know at the time when I picked it. I think I was like 16 years old when I picked this up. But it's a fantasy series, but there is some romance in it. And there's a lot of erotic sex in it because I didn't realize it was put out by Playboy Press. But it is an awesome set of books. And it does have some really good, heavy, kind of graphic sex scenes in it. And that I can handle. But some of the stuff that's out on the market these days, it's like, yeah, no, I've read bad porn better than this. Yeah, so be careful what you're writing and your audience. Think of who's going to be your audience. And I had one girl, she started doing male-on-male love scenes and sex scenes, and I'm just going like, seriously, Wendy? Wow, is this what you like writing? Well, no, but I heard somebody say I could make a lot of money doing this. You got to be writing more for than just making money. You've got to love the craft.
You got to love it. You got to love your stories.
Making money's a perk.
Yeah, it is. I told my husband once, I said, we'd have lots of money if I didn't write. Because I put a lot into it. I put a lot into mine. And
I went to the New Jersey Romance Writers Conference last October, and a New York Times bestselling author was there giving out free copies of his new book. I am sending this book to my friend back in New Jersey because not only is it a gay romance, which I don't have a problem with that. My youngest son is gay. But it's a Western. I said, and everybody said, really? That's the sticking point? It's a Western? It's like, yeah, I don't mind the rest of it, but it's a Western. So you just got to know your audience. I mean, if I had seen this book in a bookstore, I wouldn't have picked it up. But it was given to me for free, so hey, free's my favorite price.
So if you're thinking your audience is going to be your church, I would advise writing a book like that.
No, I would go with sweet romances.
Yeah, I mean, so think of your audience. Don't. And I've seen people do that. I've seen them think, well, they're going to sell to all this group, and you're not writing for that group. Think of who you're writing for.
That's true. You have to know who your audience is. You're not going to have a sweet romance and then throw in a bunch of graphic sex at the end. So.
And think about what you want to write, and always write the story. I still write some of the stories with my heart. If I don't really like the story,
nobody else is going to like it.
Yeah, if you're struggling to write it, you might need to move on.
Sort of like my third book in the series, but I promise it's going to be good. I'm just right now struggling.
Well, I've hated the fourth book in my series for a year and a half because the only thing that didn't change was the heroine and the bad guy and the major external conflict, which was a kidnapping of the hero of this book. The hero changed, his name changed, the rest of the plot changed. You can hate what you write, just go back and redo it.
I've never been a series writer. How many of you are interested in writing series? You've got an idea that you think is going to be several books. Well, when I wrote Turbulence, I wrote it as a standalone. And then I have a Facebook thing called Elaine's Amazing Readers, and they said, I put on Legacy of Lies, which was going to be the next book. They said, oh no, we don't want that one. We love Turbulence so much, you've got to write a series. You've got to do a sequel. And I think that was probably one of the hardest things I'd written because, you've got to still incorporate all this other stuff and come up with a story. My hard part with the series is coming up with a story that's as good as the first one. And I hear people complain all the time the first book was dynamite, the second one was bad, the third was worse. So that's one thing I was struggling for, is to come up with a book as good as the first one. And that's where I'm at now, is trying to make the third one stall as good as the first two. And it's hard to do in a series, and I don't know how in the world these people have 11 books in a series. I just don't see how they do it. I'm already, ready to move on to other characters.
Well, I wrote a series, and I found that it just keeps carrying me. Ideas keep coming, and these stupid characters keep popping up that want to be written about, and so it just, I don't know, it just keeps going and catapults.
Series sell better than standalone books. Now, I'm at a point now where a lot of people go in and read my backlist, so if they read one of my books and they like it, they still go in and read my backlist, but series do sell well. You can do a lot with a series. And
my series, when I finally finish it, there's going to be 7 books in my series, but each novel is a standalone story. You don't have to read the other books to read, this is book 2. You can start with book 2 and then read book 3 and then go back and read book 1. It doesn't matter. I reference the other stories, in each book, but you don't need to get the whole series to get the complete storyline.
I've tried to set mine up like that, and I don't like series that end on a book. Each book ends where it's a life and death moment, and you don't know until the author finishes the next one. I leave with a little bit of teasing, but I don't end on a book. Do you end your stuff on a book?
Book 4 is the first one that I'm going to be ending on a hook because I want to tie it to book 5.
Okay.
This is my 4th book is the first one I've written with an epilogue because I'm going to, spoiler alert, this is probably going to change too, but they think they've killed the villain, but she's gotten away. So the epilogue is her talking to her boss and getting a folder on the next member of the hero team that's going to be the heroine of book 5. That's really the only teaser or hook I've done, like that. So people know that she's going to be involved in the next book and that she's not really dead because, God, I hate this woman. I can't wait to kill this woman off in book 7. She's getting on my nerves really bad. She's so mean. Oh my God.
Sometimes your characters take on personalities that you have no control over. And that's when you're really in the flow. If you enjoy writing is when that brain process just kicks in. It's like you're watching a movie screen up here, and my fingers are typing faster than I can even
And that's
think.
when you drop words.
And yeah, that's when you make all the big mistakes, and you're doing this. And sometimes at that point, the character takes over. I know in Dark Side of the Mirror, I got this review that was just horrible. It was one, and all my reviews have been really good. And she was tearing to shreds. She didn't like anything about it. And all of a sudden, I saw where she was from. She was from New Jersey. And guess what? At the back of the book, the hero is making fun of their accent. He's not really making fun of their accents. He just says the New Jersey cops, their accents were grinding on his nerves. And of course, I made him smarter than her New Jersey cops. He's the hero. He's U.S. Marshal. He has to be smarter. But I made them come across maybe as maybe a little too tough. She was paying me that.
Hey,
so
how you doing?
And I wanted to say,
I moved here from New Jersey.
I wanted to say, I don't have a problem with your accent. It's just that he was tired. And sometimes your characters do things that, you know, of their own personally almost become people to you. And so, you know, sometimes they do things they probably shouldn't. Usually my stories, I start letting the characters just take it away. And I installed the one I'm supposed to have out like really soon. Fortunately, I'm just going in circles with it. And you're going to come to points when you're writing where you do that. And sometimes you have to, we can even talk about pantsing. Usually I get an idea for a story. I get the idea of my characters, and the first thing I think about is that internal conflict, you know, because that's going to be important. And I sit down and I just start writing. And usually about chapter 6 or 7, it's starting to get hard. I'm like, oh God, where am I going? Where are they going? What are you doing? So I have to get me a big piece of cardboard, and I sit down and I make circles, and I write all those the stuff going on. And that's the stuff on the rest of the PowerPoint that I sort of have to stop and do and see what I've got going and where I want to head. So that's how I do it. I know people that use what are those grids? Not PowerPoint, Excel.
Yeah.
They have every single thing planned out with an Excel sheet. What is that? But anyway, they do, and they're plotters. And I think some amount of plotting is good. I know how long my books are. I know where they're going to make love. I know, you know, the big dark moment. So, you know, you sort of get where you have this pattern that you sort of follow, and you sort of know where your things are going to happen.
I tell people I don't know if you all remember, but there was a commercial for Kohler faucets where this couple goes into this architect's office, puts the faucet on his desk and says, design a house around that. That's how I write. I have one really awesome scene in mind, and I design a book around it. So.
Okay, we got about 10 minutes left. Let's talk about what not to do when writing romance. Do you have any tips on what not to do?
Don't make your characters perfect. People do not like perfect people. Because people themselves are not perfect, and they want to know that these characters are as human as they are.
That's right, the flawed character. And the anti-hero, that's pretty popular
Oh yeah.
these days
The
too.
Punisher is my favorite Marvel hero.
Okay, I'm trying to think if there's anything do's and don'ts, and
Well, one of the best movies I've seen where the hero and the heroine don't meet up until almost like a third of the way through the movie. If you haven't seen it, where have you been? Go watch Romancing the Stone.
oh yeah.
This is one of the penultimate romance movies. She is so flawed. She's afraid of everything. She gets motion sickness everywhere. And she is just an absolutely terrified little romance writer living in her apartment with her cat. All of a sudden, she's got to go to Colombia and rescue her kidnapped sister. And then she meets up with the hero, who is so self-absorbed and arrogant, she doesn't like him, and he's not real enamored of her either. He's just with her to get the money to help her get to a telephone. Go watch Romancing the Stone. This is one of my all-time favorite movies.
It's mine too. I used to know every word of it, just about.
Oh, I still do. I think I've seen this movie about 4,000 times.
Matter of fact, I think I might go home and watch it. Well, no, I've got to go home and work on the book. But,
I'm going home and watching Westerns on MeTV.
I was trying to think if there's any do's or don'ts. And I just really can't. You know, it's like a cake mix. It's like baking a cake, and it really takes all of those things I showed you on the PowerPoint. It takes all the things we talked about, and even things we forgot to talk about. to build that book where it's good. And a lot of it just takes practice. And recommends you getting a critique group. Don't try to write a book and nobody's ever read it. And I come across people all the time that are interested in self-publishing that come and ask me about it since I self-publish, and no one's ever read their book, except maybe a family member who loved it. You know, and then the funniest thing I heard was a lady, I was in a ballroom, standing room only, and the subject was on self-publishing. And one little lady in the back said, I used to be a school teacher, and I edit my own work. And the whole thing, everybody was just howling.
Yeah.
Because you can't edit your own work. I don't care. I was a school teacher, and I made tons of mistakes. I've been in the World War II book. I had over 500 mistakes. Little things, but mistakes. You can't do your own editing. You need critique groups. You need readers.
You need a decent editor.
And let me tell you something. Enter contest. Some of the best feedback I got, I was from entering contests. I became a contest diva from winning so many contests back before I started publishing. And you just, and take those, even the critical things that are sound sort of harsh, take them and think about them. Yeah, I know this is your baby, but think about what they're telling you.
And you gotta grow a thick skin if you're gonna be a writer. Not everybody's gonna like what you do, not everybody's gonna like what you write, but, you know, and you're gonna have to take some criticism, so be prepared for that. It's okay. It's okay to mess up. That's how you learn.
And sometimes, when I had a critique group, if one of them told me they didn't like something, that was just her opinion, my opinion. But if you have 4 critique members and you're all having the same problem at the same spot,
You might pay attention to
rewrite it. And if it sounds really great and you're sitting there crying, like I just did, but if you really think something's too great, more than likely it's not. It's not as great as you think. And what was a really shock to me is that I'm not the only one that comes up with some of this stuff. You know, you think that the first time I ever found out there was a Marlboro Man, and that I wasn't the one that discovered him, because in all the old books they'd always compare the hero to the Marlboro Man, or what are some more things. You got to get out there and meet other writers, and you'll come out of your shell. You'll see that you're not as unique as you think, and that's why
Go to conferences.
Go to conferences. Go to reader events. Go to
Make sure you
writer
network.
events.
Networking is incredibly important.
And I can't tell you how much that's helped me is getting to know other authors and stuff.
There is one absolutely gigantic rule of romance writing, and every publisher, every editor, and other romance writers are going to tell you, if you are writing a romance, your audience, and I don't care what subgenre of romance we're writing, but your audience expects, they don't think it's going to happen, they expect happily ever after or happily for now. If you are not going to deliver, you better have a damn good reason. Like, the hero was killed in a car crash. Well, there better be a reason why you done killed him off. Like, maybe it was staged and you're going to do a series and he's actually going to be in witness protection in the next book, you know. And then she finds him by accident. But they basically demand you give a happy ending. And I'm a sucker for happy endings on my books. And happily, yeah, there's another spoiler right
But
there.
you have to write it to where it doesn't look like it's going to end happy.
Yeah.
You've got to be so convincing that there's no way that your readers really buy that.
Yeah, your reader's gonna have to be wondering, I just don't see how they're gonna get together at the end of this book. You know it's got to happen, but you just don't see how.
But you got to deliver it.
You just
got
leave
to.
this stuff over there if they want to take it.